Monster Monday. Let's talk about Dark Skies. Now, this falls into the awesome PG-13 horror catalog, which is very, very scant at best. There are maybe 10. You know, you got like 1408, The Skeleton Key, The Others, The Visit. You know, they do exist. They're just a rarity. And I think this is one of the best. The atmosphere in this film is excellent. The performances from Josh Hamilton and Kerry Russell, as always, are fabulous. I can't say enough good about the atmosphere within this movie. I think it's just fabulous. And it's what makes this film. I don't really get scared at horror movies all that much, but there are films that can make me feel unsettled while watching them because of usually atmosphere and creepy feels. Like the film just feels eerie and creepy the whole time. And if you watch it late at night and you're alone and the lights are off, you kind of start to feel like things are closing in on you a little bit. You're being psyched. You could feel the atmosphere around you. And this is one of those movies for me. Now, I grew up in a household where my stepfather was super into the paranormal and unexplained phenomena and stuff like that. So I was kind of into it by proxy. Now, I went to like a conference with Dr. Jonathan Reed, and he was shot in the parking lot like the time before. And, you know, I got pretty into it. We used to listen to Art Bell and all that stuff. So I know my stuff decently. I mean, it's all conspiracy theories. There's no facts in any of this. I know some people would be like, no, man, this is the facts. Good for them. But, you know, I'm open to it. I definitely think that I 100% believe there's life outside of this planet. I mean, there's probably millions of planets with life on them. Whether or not they come here all the time, abduct cows and people and all that shit, who fucking knows? But, I mean, I'm open to it. I just don't understand why they constantly keep coming back here. I have my own theory of why they might, but outside of that, I don't know. So, I don't know how much of a believer I am as far as like the constant, all the time, crop circles and abductions and all that. Maybe, maybe not. But I'm open to it because I'm open to most things, but I'm not going to suggest anything is fact without facts. Call me crazy. Now, the opening of this movie is got a text that says, you know, there are two possibilities. We're either alone in this world, universe, or we're not. Both are equally terrifying. Which I think is just such a great way to start this. It really sets a good tone. It makes you think, and, you know, it makes a good point. I just love it. I think it's an excellent way to start this. A very relatable moment in this movie is when the kid is watching pornography with his friend in the opening, and his friend is sitting there lying and bragging, like, I've already done this shit with women, and aw, shit, dog, like, you know, it was funny to me. And I also makes me think about the different expectation put on kids now when they go to have sex. Girls are much more open to things, and they feel like they have such a different expectation on them now than when they once did, because of the easily accessible porn that we have on the internet now. There's a scene in the movie where the kid is in a house and he's smoking pot with his friends, and there's this girl that he likes, and she's kind of flirting with him. So his response to that is to mimic the pornography that he was watching earlier in the movie by saying, "You've been a bad girl," and grabbing at her tit. I liked that scene. I feel like the kid's performance in it was a little forced, so it didn't feel all that natural, but I did like the intent behind it, that seeing something like that at too young of an age, especially when it's being kind of forced on you by his shitty, dumb fucking friend. Oh my God, this kid's awful. But a lot of us have had those friends, so I get why he's there. Rat face, his dad calls him. That's funny. But I love that the innocence is kind of brought back to it, that this girl doesn't just turn on him and make him feel like a freak. She makes it more genuine and sweet and what it should be at his age, where she just kind of leans in and gives him a little peck on the lips, and then it like cues up the music, and he's riding home and he's feeling like $1 million. I mean, a lot of us can relate to that moment when you had your first kiss and you had your first crush and all that. And it shouldn't be perverted by, you know, porn that you watched with your friend. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that you looked at porn when you were a kid, but I like that they have the contrast in that scene of his expectations of what he thinks should have been and what it actually should have been. It should just be this sweet, cute little moment where two kids are kissing. Now, granted, they are smoking pot, and what, so it's not as innocent as it all should seem, but I liked it. I liked the scene, how it kind of went from one to the other. Then we have our first incident within the house, which is the food that has been ravaged out of the refrigerator, and we find out that the aliens are vegans, I guess, which is cool with me. I'm a vegan, so hey, we already have something in common. And something odd, though, is that in this scene, they leave the back door open. And throughout the rest of the movie, it doesn't seem like they have to use any doors of any sort. From what I can tell, they breach all 8 entrances to the house at once, but nothing is open or being opened. So I don't know if they're just doing it so quick. Can they move so fast that they can come in and out? Is that what's going on here? Why would they? It's an interesting thing. I feel like they're phasing in and out of the house. That's the way it seems in the film, but I could be wrong. I don't know why they'd leave the door open. Maybe they're learning from their mistakes, but they come here all the time and they do this to all sorts of people. Maybe this is this crew's first time. Who knows? It just feels a little inconsistent. But it's still creepy. I mean, it's a good way to start the, you know, the shit that's going on in the house. I don't know. I felt like it was a tad inconsistent. I could be, you know. Anyway, I also like that there's added stressors here. In addition to all of the creepy shit that's going on in the house, there's also, you know, real day life stresses like being laid off of work and marital problems and stuff like that. And I feel like Josh Hamilton and Kerry Russell play this excellent. Like, they play this so expertly throughout the film. The way they bounce off of each other, you can feel the stress. And there's also a moment in the movie where, you know, he gets the job after a while and she has information to tell him. She doesn't want to tell him because she knows he's probably going to, you know, be opposed to it and reject it instantly. And she doesn't even want to believe it herself. And so when he comes home with the champagne, he wants to celebrate, and she's like, buries it, like, oh my God, maybe this will just blow over, maybe I'm being crazy. And that's when we get to see them in bed and kissing and loving, and that's a good moment because you didn't really feel the love between them all so much up until that point. And I feel like if we had just continued to keep going in that direction, we wouldn't have felt for them as a family as much if we didn't have those moments. Because there are moments within the film, not just there with their own relationship, but their relationship with their kids that plays really well as, you know, in addition. Like, as I said, they're in bed together, they're loving on each other, and we get to see the love between them. And then later in the movie, right before the final act, we also get to see their interactions with their children and how much they love them, you know, by telling the stories of the fireworks and all that. Those are great character moments that build a connection with us to them so that we care about what is happening to them. Something I complain about in horror movies a lot, where serious horror movies where I'm supposed to be, you know, caring about characters to make sure that when they're in peril, I give a shit. That's just it. That's what I complain about. Like, I don't care, and it disconnects me from giving a shit. And that sucks because you really want to when you're watching a serious horror movie. When you're watching a slasher movie, when you're watching stupid movies like that, you don't need to have any connections. That's not necessary. It's a plus if you can, but it's not a necessity. With a film like this, it's an absolute necessity. I have to care. I have to care about this family. I have to be sitting there like, oh my God, I hope they can get through this. I hope that this kid doesn't get taken or this, whatever. And I feel that very much in this film. And they did that by adding in realistic family moments for us to respond well to. So anyway, what's next? Then the next time we get the occurrence, it is all the shit in the kitchen stacked up in this incredible way. Look like Tinker Toys, and they're all just stacked up, and it's making these symbols on the ceiling that look like crop circle symbols. That was really cool. And then the next one is all the pictures are missing from the frames. Like everything is still exactly how it was, but all the pictures are gone. Why the aliens would do any of this shit, who fucking knows? I mean, it's just there for creepiness, and I get it. To actually try to sit down and be like, why'd they take every photo? Why did they stack up shit? Why did they raid their fridge? Why are they making them do these things to themselves and put? Maybe they're studying, you know, their reactions to these things. Like, I don't know. I can't. You could sit down. I mean, I could sit down with somebody, a few people, and discuss why they would do this. It would be a fun discussion. But for this video, yeah, I'm not going to start breaking that down. But it does raise a bunch of questions. And I like that their reactions to things are realistic. Like, something happens, they call the cops. Something happens again, they call the cops again. Then the birds all start running into the house, which is fucking terrifying, and would scare the shit out of anybody. And for me, as soon as I found out it was like 3 different flocks of birds and all this, I would have been like, okay, what the fuck? And but that's not enough for the husband, and I can kind of understand that. But I like their, you know, they call up the wildlife reserve or whatever. And they have them come out, and they're all wearing like hazmat suits. Like, I don't know. I really like that the characters make natural, realistic decisions within the film. They don't just go like, oh, well, we called the cops once. We can't call them again ever because they're not going to believe us. And I like that the cop isn't just one of these characters that's like, because we get that in a lot in horror movies where the cop comes over and he's like, you guys are fucking with me and you better never call me again or I'm going to run you in, whatever. Like, the cop in this is skeptical, but he's also caring enough. Like, he has a really good blend of both. He's trying to, you know, cater to their fears and be like, okay, like, I'm going to look around and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm not going to just make you feel like a total idiot. But also he tries to point out, like, it's probably your kids, you know, like, more than likely. So I don't know. As I said, I love the characters within the movie. Like, I feel like they all are very real, and that helps as well. I do love, as I said earlier, like, I love that when they call up the security company and they're like, all 8 entrances were breached at the exact same time. That was just eerie to me. Everything in this movie is just super eerie. And it has an atmosphere like a movie called The Mothman Prophecies with Richard Gere, which I thought was great as well. I love the atmosphere within that one. And it just, I don't know why, it has a similar feel to me. And also, another scene in the movie is the youngest kid. As I said, I can't remember if Jake or Jesse, which one's which. But he, you know, they have the new alarm system set in the house, and they're looking around for him, and they're freaking out, and they, you know, she thinks she sees this creature in his room, and then he's outside, and he's walking around in his underwear, and he doesn't even know where he is. And the alarms are not off, like the alarms did not go off. That's crazy. That's completely unexplainable, and that would almost instantly make me a believer. Like, how did he get out of the house? There's literally no way it could have happened. So it would be you'd have to start going to unbelievable places in your brain in order to try to explain it. And, you know, same thing, like he's at the park and he starts screaming and pissing his pants. And then, you know, Kerry Russell's character, Lacey, she goes and she's showing a house and then she just stops in the middle of what she's saying and then, like, walks forward and starts smashing her head into the, which is fucking crazy. It just looked crazy. And then she wakes up and I love that. I love that. She has a dream fake out. I hate dream fake outs. And this movie has a dream fake out that ends up being an actual fake out on us, making us think it was a dream fake out, but it actually happened. That's awesome. That's a way to do a dream fake out. Make me pissed off for a second and then bring it and be like, no, this actually happened. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. These clients are like, what the fuck happened? She had a breakdown. She lost like 6 hours of her life, 8 hours of her life. Can't remember. Fantastic. What a super awesome way to do a fake out. And, you know, when they have their little moment I was talking about earlier, when we get to see them having this loving relationship, then she wakes up and she goes downstairs and he's outside and his mouth's open. And then she looks down and his nose starts bleeding. Fuck, dude, no way. No fucking way. They'd be gone. That's terrible. That's terrifying. And then the kids, they one has like markings all over his body of symbols, the symbols that were on the ceiling. And then the other kid has like bruises all over his body. And I also love that, like, the reactions from her best friend. Like, when they show, like, she pulls up his shirt at the pool and like everyone is around the pool looking around like, what the fuck? And her reaction, the look on her face, the way she, you know, brings him home, and her, Kerry Russell's like, or Lacey is like, you know, my friend just treated me like I'm a child abuser. I don't know, the movie plays so well. Everyone is so realistic to me, and it's such a big thing to me. And I like that the dad goes and his immediate reaction, because he can't accept that anything else is going on here. There has to be some other explanation. But he goes to beat the shit out of his friend. And then the dad comes out and beats the shit out of him. That scene was excellent as well. And, you know, I love that the family just starts falling apart. Like, they're such odds with each other that they're screaming at each other and they just can't figure out, but they really want, and that's just it. Like, he's not being an asshole. He's not like being that character that's like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, they both genuinely want to resolve this issue. They both genuinely love the family, but one has went to the extreme and one has trying to stay grounded in reality. And, you know, both are fighting their own beliefs in that moment. Like, this, you know, the person who's trying to stay grounded in reality is fighting because they're like, okay, there might be something to all of this crazy shit you're talking about, but I can't accept it. And the other person's sitting there like, I know this is fucking crazy. Like, I want to be grounded in reality. Like, that's how I normally am. But, like, everything's telling me this is something crazier here. So I completely understand the confrontation within, you know, between each other and within themselves. So, and I feel like they play that super well. And, you know, and then the moment where he comes in and he sits down in the bed and he's like, I'm ready to believe. The whole speech he gives her is very heartfelt, and I love that moment for him, because that's like the big moment. It's like getting him to believe is a good part of this film. And when he does, it's time to go and try to save the family, and then they go talk to the expert, who's just terrifying and shows that there's, like, you know, his house, his home is just not the place to be. You're looking around, there's all these missing kids shit. Oh my God, I would be in there like, oh my God, oh my God. And then they go and they get an aggressive ass dog. I love that. Was actually, there's some funny moments in this movie, and that's probably the funniest. And she's like, how about this dog? And they look down and it's just like barking, and that was great. That's good comedy, because it doesn't affect the tone at all. You're not inserting fucking, you know, goofy noises. Halloween 5. I can't. And then they go get a gun, and they board up the house, and they're fighting for their kid. And then we get the big reveal, the twist that, you know, it wasn't the little son they were going after, it was the older son, and that's who they were making contact with since the beginning. You know, when he was a kid, she didn't ever seem to notice he was drawing aliens when he was a kid, but I wouldn't either, to be honest. And then, yeah, he's tricked out of his room, because we get to find out earlier in the movie that they can manipulate what you see in your actions, and they draw him out of the room by giving him, you know, false visions, and he's trying to escape them, and he's trying to survive, and he gets taken. And that's just it. Like, this movie has such a grim ending, too. There's no happiness, and that's just it. That's why I was going to say earlier, like, the monster thing. The worst thing imaginable, and I said this in my last review on Nightmare Beach, Welcome to Spring Break. I was saying the worst thing that can ever happen to a parent, ever, is not their kid dying, but is their kid gone missing. Now, this is a little bit of a different situation, because they do know what happened technically, but this might make it even worse, because they can't even comprehend what could possibly be happening, and no one's going to believe them. Who knows? Like, they're Jesus. What they would even have to go through is insane, because everyone would just think they were crazy, and there would be no sympathy. It would just be like, you're a nutcase, and you didn't even deserve your kid. So that would be tough. But yeah, losing your kid, like, not knowing where they are, not knowing what's happening to them on a daily basis, not knowing if they are alive, if they're being tortured, that is the worst thing that can ever happen to a person, ever. I'm sorry. Nothing is worse than that. So that's why they're monsters. They abduct children from families. Fuck that. That is the worst, worst, worst thing. The only thing I really have wrong with this movie is I'm not a big fan of the CGI, and I'm not really a huge fan of how the aliens look. We don't get to see them but for like maybe 15 seconds accumulatively here. But I wish that they wouldn't have made them CGI. I would have liked them to look better. And there's other moments within the film with the kid's eyes missing and certain things that are just glaring. Like, ugh, that doesn't look good. But they're so quick. That wasn't a really good snap. There it is. They're so fast that it doesn't really take away, but I don't know. It is my one thing that I'm not a fan of in this movie. I really wish they would have went practical for this film, and then it would have been pretty much flawless to me. But anyway, if anyone's still listening at this point, I know I say that all the time, but I ramble so long. Fans? Big fans? I freaking love this movie, obviously. All right, guys. Adios.